Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're your hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every weekday, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can find all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues affecting you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
Meeting of the Finance Committee on January 13, 2026 at 5:32 p.m. First item of business is the approval of minutes. I'll need a motion on the draft minutes of the December 9, 2025 Finance meeting.
Move to approve the minutes.
Motion approved by Micah. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the December 9 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 3, public appearances for non-agenda items. We have nobody in chambers and nobody online for non-agenda items. So we'll move on to item 4, Finance Director Report. Misty?
Thanks. So I'd like to start with the discussion item, if I may. So at the last council meeting, we had that budget amendment resolution, and we talked a little bit about the bona fide debt service fund, what it meant, why it was important. I really appreciate that you guys were willing to approve the resolution still, so I could get that done in 2025. But I said I would come back and we could talk a little bit more about what a bona fide debt service fund is and all of that. So I did include a staff memo. I don't know if you want me to go through that or just open it up to questions. How would you like to proceed?
I would love it if you can go through it a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, so a couple of things. So when we borrow debt, in order to be tax exempt, there's a lot of different rules that we have to follow. And at the end of the debt issuance, I get a transcript that is many hundreds of pages long that has all of the agreements in it, all of the documentation in it that says basically what we agree to do by issuing this tax exempt debt. And so I reference in here using our most recent debt issuance, the 2024A debt issuance, which was a note issuance. One of those documents is a tax exemption certificate, and in there is where it talks about that the city commits to having a debt service fund with the intention of clearing it out every year within a reasonable amount of carryover. So if we continue to do that, we have that debt service fund, and then we could stay eligible under the tax exempt debt purposes. We do have a separate debt service fund. It's a whole separate fund. If you look at our audit report, at our budget, all the things, it's a separate fund. So we do have that. So then the question is, are you a bona fide debt service fund? And so to be a bona fide debt service fund, it means you're using it in the spirit of what a debt service fund is, which is to basically have all of your debt in that separate kind of set of books. So it's really easy to see how much money the city borrows, how much we pay on that debt, how much debt is outstanding. We keep that separate from our operating budget so we know that that money is accounted for and that we're making those payments as required. So the city is set up and structured in order to be qualified there. Later on in the tax exemption certificate, they also talk about if we do have that bona fide debt service fund, that any interest that we earn from the time when we have from the property taxes collected, the money that we need to make the interest and principal payments throughout the year, if we earn interest on that money from January through when those payments are made, we can earn as much interest as we can without having to include that in that arbitrage calculation, again, as long as we're a bona fide debt service fund. And so we do comply with that too. Now, when I recommend the property tax levy amount for the debt service fund, I do back out those the abated debt amounts. So we're not levying for all of the principal and interest payments. There's other revenues that that fund also receives that's not property taxes that I make an estimate for what I think that's going to be. So the two that caused or that kind of made the recommendation for the resolution was the special assessment revenues and the interest revenues. So I don't want to be overly aggressive when we're setting what our property tax levy is for the following year for debt service payments, because if I'm over aggressive, we didn't meet our requirement to levy for the payments to make the payments. If I'm a little more conservative, we have that opportunity to kind of move things around and still do it. So from a public policy perspective, it's much better to come from a place of having a little bit of cushion because you're conservative versus having a shortfall because we were too aggressive. So I do try to stay somewhat in the ballpark of what I think is reasonable. But as we've talked about, as treasurer reports come on, as budget time happens, interest revenue in particular is really hard to plan for. We have high interest rates right now, and I don't think it's reasonable to think that will continue. And again, I'd hate to under levy for the interest and principal payments I know I need to make in the coming year. So all of that's kind of laid out, again, in that memo. We did have this similar situation the last couple of years. So 2023, we approved R21023. In 2024, we approved R21024. And then at the last meeting, we did the resolution for 2025. If, interest revenues aren't as aggressive or aren't as high as what they've been recently in 2026, or if I don't get unexpected special assessment payments, then I wouldn't need to do it again in 2026. But if that situation continues kind of as it is now, then I expect I will be bringing a recommendation again for 2026 to do something very similar.
Thank you so much for bringing that explanation. One question, so if we levy for debt service payments that we then end up not having to use because we have other sources of revenue to pay down the debt, does that money just flow into the general fund or into the, what happens to that money?
Yeah, so that was the resolution that I brought forward. So
Yeah.
I had recommended using that money to not borrow as much the following year.
Okay, so it depends every year.
Yep, and so the strategy of it is we're still using it kind of for debt service, right? We're not borrowing as much because we're using this instead. So it's in the spirit of what we levied for, but then it also saves taxpayer money because we don't pay as much interest and issuance cost that following year because we're not borrowing as much money. So that's why I bring forward those recommendations.
Awesome. Other questions? Micah?
This is also why we do the swaps too, right? When we do those things, that's a similar strategy, if
The
you will.
swaps is more, I have this money that I have to spend by certain timelines in order to, reduce my arbitrage rebate or arbitrage responsibility. So I kind of change which project is being funded by that debt issuance. I'll say not every municipality keeps the same level of detail as what we do, where I track project by project how it's funded and all of that stuff. So that's why it takes a little extra administrative to track it and to know exactly how we're spending it. But then I'd rather bring that to you guys so you're aware and you know what I'm spending that money on as opposed to doing it kind of behind the scenes.
And then I just had one question. So the one thing I just want to make sure I understand. So when we have the excess interest on over the course of the year, above and beyond, is there an IRS requirement that says that money must be applied to the balance of the bonds? Or are we just doing that because that's a conservative, good practice? I mean, is that a requirement or is that just a practice that we're doing?
So one piece I'd like to just clarify is I'm only talking about interest revenue in the debt service fund. So interest revenue for all the other funds is handled differently. Within the debt service fund, though, I'd say it's best practice to keep it kind of within debt service purposes because that's what we told the taxpayers we were levying it for, is for debt service purposes. So I like to keep it for debt service purposes. I don't know if it's a law necessary, but it's definitely more transparent.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. I have a little bit more report if I can jump in. So obviously the big thing in the finance department is tax collection. So we were open from the day property tax bills hit mailboxes till the end of the year. We were open 11 working days. During that time, the team collected $39.7 million with 4,435 transactions. So very busy in those 11 working days. And then it's continued. So through yesterday, we were up to 53.1 million. So people are paying in about the same statistics as what we usually see. And then other than that, we're doing kind of end of year stuff. So we need to start closing out 2025, W-2s, 1099s, all of that stuff. So it's a pretty heavy lift for the finance department this time of year.
And you're hiring for your new finance position, is that correct?
We are, yep. So we did hire the part-time position. So Becky started on Monday and is getting all trained up. And then yesterday we posted for the finance specialist procurement budget position that was authorized by budget amendment. And then Tim Volker from Public Works and I are ready to do those interviews. That position will mostly benefit or mostly support the Public Works Department, but will be a finance department position officially.
Congrats on getting the part-time position filled so quickly. That's great.
Yeah, and she's great. We're really excited to have her.
Was that an internal hire or was that?
No, external.
Wow, that's great.
Alder Gerhard, do you mind if I just add a couple of comments?
Please do.
In regards to just really for those listening in the public, I know that the audience here is all familiar with this, but the tax revenue that Misty has indicated the city has collected, I just want to remind the public that approximately 1/3 of that revenue stays here in the city, and the other 2/3 is shipped off to the other taxing jurisdictions. And the position that was referenced in the finance department was created through the elimination of a position in the building inspection department and a reallocation of resources that obviously was approved by this body in a couple of different ways. But just again, for the public, just to further understand how that position was created and that it was not effectively an added expense to the city.
Thanks for the clarification. That's very important. Always wild that we collect all the money. I guess it's more convenient for individuals to be able to pay in their city versus having to go to like the county building or something, but definitely a huge burden on our staff. Do we get compensated by other municipalities for that work?
So not compensated directly. We do, however, get to keep the interest revenue that we earn on it. So like all that money we collected through December 31st, 25, I settle on that with all the jurisdictions on this coming Thursday. And then the money that we collect through January 31st, I settle with the jurisdictions on February 20th. So there's a bit of time there where we're able to invest it. And then that interest revenue helps offset the LTE staff and all of that we're responsible for.
Do you have any recollection of how much that usually generates?
So I can say for December it was 20,000, which would have been a short period of time, but a large dollar amount. Overall, I don't recall exactly. I can find out though.
It's in the tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It of course varies, right? So that year that we were getting 0.01%, we didn't cover even the LTE cost. But the years where interest is average or higher, we definitely cover those costs. And then it is a convenience thing, right? So we could have the county do all of the collection, but there's something about being able to come to your local jurisdiction and make one payment here.
Yeah, it's a service for our residents.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad. I did not know that about the interest. That's good. That's good to know. Questions for Misty? Yeah, Bill.
I guess just for the folks watching at home. So we've collected about 53 million so far, which is something less than half. What is the grand total we expect to collect? Is that like just ballpark?
Yeah, so I don't know that number off the top of my head. I can say by January 31st, we usually collect about 71% of the total. And by the end of the year, we usually collect about half. So in those ballparks. I can get the exact dollar amount and report next time, though.
Misty, I always like doing some math in my head. If the city collects approximately 1/3 or keeps approximately 1/3 of the tax revenue, and our levy this year is roughly 33 million, 34 million, if I recall correctly, we're probably likely have $100 million in tax property that would effectively need to be collected, whether or not it's all paid. And if you mentioned 71%, then we may end up collecting approximately 70 million in total here at the city. How does that sound?
Not
I know I'm
quite.
totally
It's
on
light.
a tangent.
It's light. So it's light because of the TID increment as well as the special assessments and the special charges. So it is, I just pulled it up, 126 million is the total amount of the tax roll.
That is very interesting. I learned a lot. I didn't.
And as Chad said, we get to keep 33 of that.
Yeah.
So
Wow. All right. Any other questions for Misty? Anything else to add for the report?
Nope, that's it.
Great. We can move on to item 5, review of bills. 5A, detailed review of all checks issued, checks 129729 to 129854 from December 1 to 31, 2025, totaling $3,473,485.42. Comments or questions? Bill?
yeah, I had a couple, and Tim is on, so he can probably answer these if you can't. There was a generator repair as well as a water main break, and I'm trying to remember. I don't know, how far past the event occurs that we actually pay, but I don't remember talking about these recently in Public Works.
What specifically did you want to know about the water main break or the?
I guess was the water main break still from Fish Hatchery Road, or was that another one?
I mean, we have water main breaks that happen periodically every month. December, I believe we didn't have any, so this was probably most likely back in November. So it may be like a small leak, a corp stop or a service. It could be a fitting that leaked, a leaky valve. All depends on the situation.
Okay. And there was a generator repair. I didn't know what that was for. Was that a water?
Yeah, I believe that was the generator here at City Hall. That something went on that, and we had to bring in. I don't know if it's a Caterpillar or what manufacturer, but Kevin, our building maintenance supervisor, was working on that.
Okay.
That is correct. It was a generator problem here at City Hall.
And then one for Misty. I saw there was a PSF-PR2 energy tax credit that we paid to JP Cullen. So how does that work? Where we pay them the tax credit?
So it wasn't us paying the tax credit. We jumped through some hoops to cut a check to JP Cullen for a portion of the solar before the end of the year so that they could cash the check. Because if they cashed that check and we paid a certain percentage of it by the end of the year, we were eligible for more tax credits than we would otherwise be too. So that description is because we reclassified something out of one line into a separate line so that I can track those specifically to show that we didn't pay for those using borrowed funds, which then allows us to get a higher tax credit as well.
Okay.
So it was more a flag to say this is the portion of the project that we think will be eligible for tax credit consideration.
Okay.
We can move on to 5B, review of P-card transactions for the cycle ending November 6, 2025, totaling $277,912.92. Comments or questions? Seeing none, we can move on to 5C, detailed review of all ACH payments from December 1 to 31, 2025, totaling $687,553.68. Comments or questions? All right, we can move on to item 6, action items. First up, I'll need a motion on Resolution R 23225, authorizing Dane County services for stormwater and permit review and erosion control inspection in 2026.
I move approval.
Motion by Alder Bill. Tim, you have the floor.
Thank you. The city has a contract with Dane County Land and Water Resources approved on March 23rd, 2017 by Resolution R-35-17. City utilizes these services for the compliance review of stormwater management and erosion control permits and inspection. The 2026 operating budget has allocated $35,000 for Dane County erosion control and stormwater management review and enforcement services. We're looking for council to authorize payment to Dane County Land and Water Resources as outlined on the attached pre-approval form, and then notes for for development projects, these expenses are billed back to the developer for these services.
Comments or questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor of resolution R 23225, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Next up, I will need a motion on resolution R 23625 to approve a contract with Dane County to accept 2026 Neighborhood Navigator funding.
Move to approve.
Motion approved by Alder Micah. Who will be handling this one?
I can handle it. So this is the continuation of the contract with Dane County. They provide grant funding that covers 100% of the Neighborhood Navigator program, which is LTE staff and then the equipment in order to that they work with. So this contract would be for 2026, and the contract is pretty standard to what's been in the past, though they've made some structural changes that don't really impact the city's plan.
Questions? Bill?
I would just like to make a motion here to amend, because the now be it hereby resolved clause says we're supporting the Neighborhood Navigator program in 2025. That should say 2026.
I think we can take that as a friendly amendment change. Or should we
We just vote on it,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
All right, all in favor of that changing 2025 to 2026, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. That is amended. Any other discussion? I would say that this has been a pretty successful program overall. And do you know how long we've had this contract with Dane County? Because I think it's been as long as I've been on the council, so probably at least 6 years.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like it said something about that in the
2019.
Oh, yeah.
pilot.
Yeah.
2019. Okay,
Yeah, I
so
would
it's
say
shortly
about 6
before.
years sounds about right. And
Yeah,
it's
it's been.
confirmed by the packet readers.
Yeah.
Is
Micah.
this a standard first meeting in January thing where we could do all the Dane County contract stuff? Okay.
Yep.
That's what I figured.
Probably saw in the referrals. Yeah.
Is there, so this is for the Leopold Fitchburg Early Childhood Zone. Is there a reason that we do this and no other area in the city?
So it was originally when the program was implemented, and for the first number of years, it was only in the Leopold area of the Madison School District where the navigators could do their work, so to speak. I think it was 2 years ago or last year that Dane County allowed the navigators to work throughout the city. So they do have the ability now to work out throughout the city, is my understanding.
Okay, there was quite a bit of verbiage in there about Leopold Early Childhood Zone. So I guess I assume that meant it was just for that area.
That's how it has been. I don't know if Dane County felt the need to reflect the information that has previously been provided to us, that we do have the flexibility to use those navigators throughout the community as our needs allow. We can clarify that if you would like. You can reach out to Jill.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, seeing no other questions, we can take it to a vote. All in favor of resolution R 23625, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to 6C, I'll need a motion on resolution R 23725, approval of 2026 Dane County contract for case management and nutrition services.
I move approval.
Motion approved by Alder Bill. Missy?
Yeah. So this is very similar. It's another Dane County contract where they reimburse us for some of our costs relating to case management and nutrition for adults that are 60 years and older. So it doesn't cover all of our costs, but it is a way to help provide those services. And we do this one every year as well.
Any questions?
I will just say that this resolution also says adopted the 13th day of January 2025. So
It's going to be hard to get out of that habit. Do you want to make a motion?
Yeah, can we move to amend that to 13th day of January 2026?
All in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. That is amended to 2026. Other questions about the resolution? Seeing none, we can take it to a vote. All in favor of resolution R 237-25, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Next up, I'll need a motion on resolution R 240-25, amending the developer deposit required when TIF assistance requested policy.
I'll move to approve.
Motion to approve by Alder Micah. Who's going to handle this one? Chad?
Yeah, I've got this one. So whenever a developer contacts the city to engage in a conversation or a negotiation in regards to potential tax increment financing assistance for a particular project, there are costs that are associated with that negotiation. The city has had a policy in place since at least 2018. Misty, was that the first time that there was actually a policy approved?
Correct.
So since 2018, which does require the developer to put a deposit down in order for the city to engage. At the time, the policy mentioned a third-party financial advisor firm would do an analysis of the project's financials. What we have found over the last few years is developer agreements and negotiations in some situations are becoming a bit more complex and may require additional time by the public finance advisor that we use, Ellers, to conduct these analyses. And in some situations, it may also require outside legal counsel to help assist with the drafting of documents or particular specialty services. So we wanted to include that additional information within the policy that there could be other costs associated with the agreement besides just the financial side of things. And then obviously costs are going up for not only just the financial assessment and analysis, but also potentially any legal assistance. So we do want to be transparent with the developers that we may request up to $20,000 in an initial deposit, depending upon the scope of the project and what work might be necessary for them to engage in the developer agreement conversation. And in the case of a situation where the TID district needs to be amended, currently the city is paying for the cost associated with the amendments, or the TID is paying for the cost associated with the amendments. And we think that it would be more appropriate to shift that cost to the developer and have them pay for those amendment costs. So in a situation where the developer is needing, or the city would need to amend the tax increment district, we would look for an additional deposit to cover those costs. In the event the full deposit was not used, it would be refunded to the developer, and in the event that the costs exceeded the deposit, we would invoice the developer for those excess costs. So that is the summary of the proposed and recommended changes in this policy. Any questions?
Bill?
Is this new policy, I mean, is this in line with what other municipalities are doing? We're not breaking any real ground here?
I'm not familiar with what the dollar amounts that others are requesting in their deposits, but we certainly are not blazing any new territory here on this. The city does have history of having experiences where a developer has engaged in a negotiation prior to this policy and the development did not come to fruition, but yet expenses were incurred. Those fell solely on the city and its taxpayers and or TID districts. So any municipality that is applying best practices to these sorts of negotiations would have a policy similar to this. Ellers, our public finance firm, acknowledges or indicates that this is a best practice. So I would like to venture a guess that any of the municipalities that are working with Ellers or any other public finance advisory firm are utilizing similar policies. And it's, as mentioned, it's not new for us. We've had it in place since 2018. We're merely looking at an update. We've got several negotiations ongoing for a variety of different projects, and developers in all of those projects have put down deposits in accordance with the policy that's currently in place, and it hasn't been an issue at all.
Is there any part of this process that could be automated that is not yet automated?
I don't know about that. Possibly we work off a development agreement template. I mean, the negotiations themselves, that's going to continue to require some human interaction for the foreseeable future. But we do work off a standard template, so that at least does help with some of the process. There could be some efficiencies to better move those documents back and forth amongst attorneys. Typically those are done through email attachments and Word docs and those sorts of things. Obviously financial institutions and others are using different methods to transfer documents back and forth and so on. So there could be some measure of efficiency there, but if you have ideas, we're certainly willing to listen.
Other questions? Okay. Seeing none, we can vote. All in favor of Resolution R 240-25, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to 6E, I'll need a motion on Resolution R 244-25, amending the 2026 General Fund and Donation Fund budgets, Senior Center LTE Nutrition Site Assistant.
I move approval.
Motion approved by Alder Bill. Misty?
I'll take this one. So for 24, 25, and now we're requesting for 2026, the Senior Center has had an LTE person assist down in the nutrition area with the meals that the Senior Center does. And it's proved really helpful to have the extra set of hands, but also LTE so that there's more flexibility, kind of use them when you need them. However, the city hasn't been able to fund this position directly within our budget. So thankfully, Jill has a really strong friends group and other donors that are very supportive of the nutrition program and have offered to help cover the cost. So for 2024, they covered all of it. For 25, they covered 70% of it. And then for 2026, the Fitchburg Senior Center Friends have agreed to cover $15,000, and then there's another donor that was willing to pick up the difference. So this is a budget amendment resolution that would accept those donations and show that revenue, and then authorize the LTE hours. I believe it's 20 hours a week on average to help in that program.
Well, we send our thanks to the Friends of the Senior Center for being so generous for so many years to make that possible. I know certainly we've had discussions about how to get it into the budget, and I hope that we can do it in a year very soon, since this is I believe a city service that's essential. But in the interim, I'm really glad that we have some residents that are so willing to support the program. So many thanks to the Friends of the Senior Center for making that possible. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of Resolution R 244-25, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. We are at the end of our action items. Next item is item 7, announcements. Our next finance meeting is January 27, 2026. Any other announcements? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Alder Micah. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned at 6:04 p.m. Thank you. Good night.